Hi folks, Dane here, and today I'm going to be doing a review of The Moving Finger by Agatha Christie. I know a lot of people at the moment are really getting into Agatha Christie for the first time because of Murder on the Orient Express, and I think they're also going to be doing Death on the Nile, which is one of my favourites. They're going to be doing that as a film as well. I've read quite a lot of Agatha Christie, not like all of them by any means, but maybe 15-20 Agatha Christie books, so I'm kind of digging into the reserves now. I've read all the main ones, I think. But I was inspired to pick up this one. Basically, I've got a bunch of... I buy my Agatha Christie books from charity shops, and so I've got a bunch of them just lined up ready for me to go. And I was inspired to pick this up after a review from another charity shop lover, and that's Hannah Tay. So I caught a video on BookTube recently where Hannah Tay reviewed The Halloween Party, and I'll link that below. And I think this is very much the thing with Agatha Christie. It's very hard not to enjoy one of her books. Now, I did take notes as I went through, so I'm going to go through some of these notes. Hopefully there are no spoilers. I've tried to avoid revealing who did it and that kind of thing. I just want to give you a feel for what this book's all about, really. So I'm going to read from the blurb quickly, just to give you that. So, Limstock is a town with more than its share of shameful secrets. A town where even a sudden outbreak of anonymous hate mail causes only a minor stir. But all of that changes when one of the recipients, Mrs. Symington, commits suicide. Her final note says, "I can't go on." But still Miss Marple questions the coroner's verdict of suicide. Soon, nobody is sure of anyone, as secrets stop being shameful and start becoming deadly. So as you will have got from the blurb, this is a Miss Marple book. It's actually number 4 in the series of Miss Marple books. However, she doesn't actually show up until really, really late. I have here. There we go, page 223 of 296. I've got this note saying, well, look who it is. So she doesn't show up until really, really late in the book. And it's kind of implied on the blurb that she's going to be there throughout, I guess. But actually, Agatha Christie has a knack for doing this. And she's done this with a few of the Poirot books as well, where Poirot or Miss Marple only show up right at the very end. So throughout, it works really well. It stops the focus from being on the detective and actually puts more focus on the characters and also you as a reader, because it's almost a case of you as a reader want to solve this before Miss Marple gets there. I'm going to go through and check back on some of my notes on this before I give you kind of my overall rating for the book. And so one of the first things I noticed, there's a character in it called Mrs. Dane Calthrop. I watched Hannah's video and was like, I need to read some Agatha Christie now, and I didn't know which one to go for, and I had a bunch up there on my TBR shelves. And I picked this one up first, flicked in at random, and landed on this page where it's talking about Mrs. Dane Calthrop. And I was like, it's a sign, it's my name. But no, so she is Mrs. Dane Calthrop, and she is married to Mr. Dane Calthrop. So Dane Calthrop is their extremely... Oh, there goes my mouse. There's their extremely middle-class British-sounding surname. And she's actually the vicar's wife, so the vicar is a chap called Mr. Dane Calthrop. But that, just seeing my name there, it doesn't happen often in fiction. Stephen King used Dane as a name once, actually, and I can't remember which book now. But that made me happy. So, seeing my name in the book, I was like, I've got to read this now. And what's great about this, actually, is that in terms of like the format and the aesthetics of it as a book, I don't know if you can see, the print's pretty nice. It's just really pleasing to read. You honestly, you feel like you whiz through this. I mean, this is 300 pages, and it took me, I think, 2 days to read it, maybe 2.5 days at a push. And the thing with Agatha Christie's writing, it always does, it always flows. I mean, she was a master of the craft. So in this, obviously, from the blurb, you will have got that there is an anonymous letter writer sending letters around. And I thought that was great as a plot device. It changed it from being the traditional, oh, somebody was killed, who could have done it, to where are all these letters coming from? And it was an interesting take on like the crime fiction, detective fiction genre. There's also some great Middle England vibes in just throughout, really. There is, I guess, some sort of problematic areas in this, but again, I think a lot of it is a sign of the times. For a start, everybody just assumes that this letter writer is a woman because it's a female crime. It's not a male crime. It's like, whoa, you know. And then straight away as well, I'm not going to reveal kind of what ends up happening, but straight away that then makes me as a reader think, why should it be a woman? What if it's a man? And then I'm starting to double, you know, think maybe it's a double bluff and it is a woman, and she's trying to make me think, because she said it's a woman's crime, she's trying to make me think it's a man and it's actually a woman. And it messes with your head. A lot of different things. This one's kind of materialistic, for example. So someone said, why are people so blind? You agree, I'm sure you agree, that beauty is the only thing worth living for. Then why do people surround themselves with ugliness? Odd. It's criminal, that's what I call it. Criminal. And the excuses they give. They say something is comfortable, or that it is quaint. Quaint, such a horrible word. I mean, it works in the context of the story, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, who are you to judge what other people want to surround themselves with? One thing that confuses me, actually, looking back on this, they started, towards the beginning, they started calling the letter writer the hidden hand, and then later on it just becomes the poison pen. And either way, these names aren't really kind of fully developed. They're used maybe once or twice. These names are only mentioned like once or twice, and I feel like it's a shame because she could have really dug in further with that concept, I think, and kind of created almost, you know how you have Jack the Ripper and stuff like that. It could have been the poison pen murders or whatever, but I've got here, I like Megan and her darnings. So there was a character called Megan, and she was kind of a young girl. I think she was 20 years old at the time, and she was kind of portrayed as, I guess, a typical young 20-year-old girl in the 1930s, 1940s, whenever this is set. When was this written? First published in 1943, and she does act very much how you would imagine a 20-year-old girl in the 1940s to act, I guess. But I like her because she's a bit of a rebel as well, so I'm going to read you a bit. I should point out here it's written in first person before I start to read this excerpt, otherwise you'll get confused. I've darned my stockings, she announced proudly. I am not an authority on darning, but it did occur to me that the strange, puckered blot of violently contrasting wool was perhaps not quite a success. It's much more uncomfortable than the whole, said Megan. It looks as though it might be, I agreed. Then she goes, if only I wore black stockings, I could ink my legs, said Megan sadly. That's what I always did at school. Miss Batworthy, the mistress who looked after our mending, was like her name, blind as a bat. It was awfully useful. So I really like this character. Agatha Christie firing shots at Shakespeare. Listen to this. I can see you two are going to be very highbrow, said Joanna. I'm afraid I always find Shakespeare terribly dreary. All those long scenes where everybody is drunk and it's supposed to be funny. Oh yeah, then there's a part in it as well where the same character, and I believe it is Joanna. Oh no, this is Amy Griffith, this character. And she manages to be both kind of racist and then feminist in the same page. I was like, what the hell just happened? I get you wouldn't call it full racism, and obviously it's a product of the times. It is what I would guess you would call a microaggression. So they're talking about this photo. I got up and took from my desk, where it always accompanied me, a photograph of my favourite Chinese picture. It represents an old man sitting beneath the tree, playing cat's cradle with a piece of string on his fingers and toes. It was in the Chinese exhibition, I said. It fascinated me. Allow me to introduce you. It is called Old Man Enjoying the Pleasure of Idleness. Amy Griffith was unimpressed by my lovely picture. She said, oh well, we all know what the Chinese are like. It doesn't appeal to you, I asked. Frankly, no. I'm not very interested in art. I'm afraid your attitude, Mr. Burton, is typical of that of most men. You dislike the idea of women working, of their competing. I was taken aback. I had come up against the feminist. Amy was well away, her cheeks flushed. It is incredible to you that women should want a career. It is incredible to my parents. I was anxious to study for a doctor. They would not hear of paying the fees, but they paid them readily for Owen. Yet I should have made a better doctor than my brother. Yes, unless you were diagnosing Chinese people, because then you would just say, no, they're not ill, they're just lazy. Bloody hypocrite. I'm poking a little bit of fun at it here, but it works in the context that all the characters very much have their own personalities, and, you know, as much as I'm poking fun at Amy Griffith, it's because I didn't like Amy Griffith, but part of the reason I didn't like her is because of her views, I guess, but part of it is because she's such a, like, she's just so insufferable, if you know what I mean. Like, whereas she's spouting all this stuff about feminists while simultaneously slurring against the Chinese, you've got Megan, who I think is more an example of what feminism should be, in that she's just living her life. Like, she's not complaining about her lot or whatever. She's actually just going out and doing what she wants to do. And for 1944 or 1943, I think it was, I think that's pretty forward thinking. By its very nature, because of this premise of all the letter writing, it becomes not a who done it, but a who wrote it. And I think that's awesome. I've not really seen that before. It is usually, even in Agatha Christie and in detective novels and stuff, you know, if you take, I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, even down here, this is 210 pages in, they're still saying, oh, it must be a woman. Except because they think it's a woman's crime, they've amended their assertion, so it's either a woman or it's Mr. Pye, because Mr. Pye is an effeminate male. And as a, as a 21st century reader, you're just like, oh, that's not how it works. It's the same way as people say, poison is a woman's murder weapon. It's like, well, maybe it used to be. But fair play. If a woman wants to pick up a gun and go and shoot somebody, they should have every right to become a murderer by whatever. What am I saying? I don't know. But you know what I mean. I don't like that automatic assumption. It's not very scientific to say, oh, well, she's a woman. This has been written by a woman because it's a woman's crime. Bollocks. Bollocks to that. And then obviously Miss Marple shows up. And then that is at the point at which it starts to kind of wrap itself up and we start to get all the answers we're looking for. So I don't want to actually talk too much about Miss Marple's presence in this book or what happens after that. But what I did want to do is kind of give you that view of what the book is about, kind of what happens along the way. Obviously there are more twists and turns after this point, but I don't want to go into those because I don't want to reveal spoilers. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to my rating for this book, and that's an easy rating. This is an easy 4 out of 5 for me. I'm not going to give it a 5 just because there are books like Death on the Nile and then there were none. There are so many Agatha Christie books that are 5-star reads, and this isn't as good as the very best of them, but it's certainly up there, and it was certainly a lot of fun. And even though Miss Marple was only kind of a minor character in it, it was good fun to see her. So yeah, there we have it for my review of The Moving Finger by Agatha Christie. Let me know what you thought in the comments and whether you've read this book. If not, let me know if you've read any Agatha Christie and which ones of those you've read. I'm probably going to read some more Agatha Christie soon as well and do some more reviews like this. So do hit subscribe and keep your eyes peeled for that. And in the meantime, thanks a lot for watching and I will see you soon. Bye bye.